So how have you been finding Kapow? This is your first year, right?
Yes, it is. My first year. It's great. I love it. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be. I've been to Comic-Cons around the world before. Never really been to one here. I went to one, I think the first one I went to actually was, I went to Wizard World in Philadelphia a few years ago. And I think I saw 3 really fat Darth Vaders there. They were like great uncle Vaders, really, you know. But yeah, I love it here. It's great. Some of the costumes are wicked, and so many cool people here, like Jock.
That's it. Funny enough, at San Diego Comic-Con a few years ago as well, I saw quite a large guy as well on like one of those mobility scooters, you know, but not because he was, obviously just because of his weight.
Yes.
But he was in full Jedi costume, like with a lightsaber, like sticking out the side where he's kind of got his throttle like that, like, just heading along an aisle. It was amazing.
So for the benefit of those that were in your panel earlier, the
Yeah.
big news is that you're making a comic.
That's right, yeah.
So do you want to tell people what it's all about, what it's called to start with?
It's called Superman, and no, it's well, actually, it's funny. It's me and Jock have come up with this thing. It's called Nelson. But you were saying there's another comic called Nelson.
Well, there's like an anthology small press thing. Well, I'll show it to you. It's
Oh, right.
like, it's a totally different thing.
We'll crush that other Nelson, whatever the fuck it is. I'm sorry for swearing. I won't swear. There's kids here. If I'm going to swear, I'll just say F word, and you guys will know what I mean. Yeah, it's a comic about a guy who's like a sort of, he's this huge, hugely muscular guy who I described him as, he's like the Credible Hulk in terms of his size. He's just at the limit of plausibility for a human. He's the sort of chief of police in a sort of Gotham City version of London, and he operates a zero tolerance approach to crime, and London just has the lowest crime rate of anywhere in the world. And his thing is he hates people who commit crimes against children, and he takes the law into his own hands and batters and kills paedophiles. That's the story. It's
very amusing, funny stuff.
yes, yeah. It's not really a funny story. It's quite. I suppose he's like the embodiment of the rage that you feel when you see somebody in the news who's been accused of committing crimes against kids, and you think, what would you do in that situation if you were face to face with like Ian Brady or somebody like that? What would you do? And that's what this is about. It's like he is that guy. He's that guy, and he can do things with impunity. He can, and he gives. He doesn't believe like the people like that should be put in prison for the rest of their life, and he doesn't believe that is justice. He has his own version of what justice should be for those kind of people. So that's what it is. Nickelodeon are interested in a spin-off. No, it's kind of a sort of a dark thing, you know. But I suppose I suppose there's a sort of a bit of a Batman-y vibe to it. He's like a sort of, he's a kind of a bit like Batman, but he doesn't have a secret identity. And it's in, as I said, this sort of Gotham City version of London, which is actually a more gothic city than New York, really, isn't it? But
yeah, and it's, you know, it's I keep coming back to this. It kind of feels like a very British take on it, you know, that I think living in the UK, you have a certain kind of, you know, maybe angle on things, and Peter's angle on Nelson was really, really amazing, you know, really interesting. And you know, so there's kind of the tabloids are involved, the tabloid culture, you know, like this guy, he's a little bit off the rails as well, you know, he's kind of an alcoholic and addicted to drugs, and kind of tips out of nightclubs on the front of Heat magazine or whatever. And he wears a suit. He isn't super powered, is he? He's very, very strong, but he wears this suit which is kind of what is it that he has to plug in to charge. It's a little bit rubbish,
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, and it is part of that whole sort of drinking culture as well, of like
We Brits do so well.
the we Brits do so well. Yeah. So he's kind of like the Hulk, who he's like the Hulk, but he's clever, and he's off his head most of the time, and he's disposed towards violence, like that's his like default setting, really. But people love him, and because the city's so safe. He does, like, you're probably too young to remember, but we used to have, when I was a kid, the Green Cross Code man telling kids how to cross the road. It was Dave Prowse. That he does those adverts, so kids think he's amazing. So yeah, that's what it is, and I guess people will see something relatively soon. This year, certainly. Yeah.
Cool. So how did you get involved, Jock?
I met Peter at a radio thing in London. They were doing a comic I did a few years ago called The Losers was made into a film, and they were kind of giving it away as a download. Not when it came out. You did have to pay to see it originally. And Peter was hosting like a half-hour kind of radio thing, and me and Andy Diggle, that wrote the comic, were guests on the show one week, and I met Peter, and he said he had this idea, and I loved it, and here we are.
Yeah,
as if by magic.
And then we started talking to you, and
yeah. What's going to happen? Can we design the day like this?
So this is your first comic book. Why have you decided to do this now?
I don't know really. The original idea that I had was to do it as a TV show, and I took it to FX and HBO in the States, and it's just hard to get like a superhero-y thing off the ground, if you'll excuse the pun, because they're so expensive, but I thought, because it is this, it's like a superhero in a sort of real world, and it just suits being a comic, and I love comics, and that's why it was just like a little series of little serendipitous chances that brought us together.
Because of course, when you do anything as a comic, you've got a completely unlimited budget. You're just limited by what you can draw, basically.
Yeah.
So this is mainly just about cats, because that's all I like to draw, really. Like,
they're all cats.
You can do anything in a comic, and that's what's so amazing about comics. It just made a lot of sense. As soon as Peter sent me the scripts, I could see it, straight away. So it just made sense to do it like this. Yeah.
Well, people still know you best as a comedian, but this sounds incredibly dark. Is this kind of an outlet for you, given that your career so far has been so much based in humour and comedy?
I think people mainly know me as a comedian. So I don't know, I've done sort of serious stuff before, and I've done some unfunny stuff before. So maybe perhaps it won't be that much of a surprise to people, but I don't know, it's just a story I've just always been fascinated by this version of this story, and I don't know, I think I'm so lucky to have Jock, who's the co-creator. I'm so lucky to have him, because now I think, wow, this actually might be good,
Or